Baby, before I say anything else, just let me breathe in this moment. Because what I'm about to tell you has lived in the back of my mind like a storm I didn't want to face, but that storm finally arrived, and it came in the form of the one person I never expected. My mother. She set me down, quiet, calm, and heavy-headed, and told me something that shattered me more than any breakup, more than any goodbye, more than any silence you've ever given me. She said she was a test, and you failed, son. At first, I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was speaking from bitterness or maybe regret, trying to pick apart the memories I still held of you like they were mistakes I should have outgrown. But then I looked into her eyes and saw something different. Not anger, not judgment, but truth. Raw, painful, undeniable truth. And baby, that truth was this. You weren't just someone I loved. You were a mirror, a divine test sent by the universe to see if I could recognize grace in its most human form, a test to see if I could love something sacred without breaking it, and I did break it. I broke you. I broke us. I broke the very thing that was trying to heal me. And now, with nothing left but echoes and memories, I finally see what my mom saw all along. You were the test that measured my growth, my loyalty, my soul, and I wasn't ready. She said something that keeps ringing in my ears. She whispered, when God sends a woman like her, He's not giving you a gift. He's giving you a choice, and you chose wrong. Baby, do you know what that did to me? I sat there in silence, trying to swallow the lump in my throat, trying to process the weight of those words, and suddenly, every moment with you replayed in my mind, not like memories, but like lessons I didn't know I was supposed to learn. Your love, your patience, your silence, every one of those things wasn't just affection. It was a test of my readiness, my character, my soul's alignment. And I failed. I failed when I made you feel like you had to prove your worth. I failed when I let others speak about you with anything less than reverence. I failed when I stayed quiet when I should have roared. And the worst part, you never asked me for perfection. You only asked me to see you, to choose you, to honor the love you gave so freely. But I was too blind, too lost in ego, too chained to the opinions of people who never understood the depth of our connection. My mom saw it, quietly, silently, in the way I changed when you entered my life. She noticed the way I smiled more, the way I slowed down when you spoke, the way I didn't flinch when you asked hard questions. She saw me growing, healing, softening, becoming someone who was finally stepping into his truth. And then she saw me lose you and break right in front of her. She said, I watched the light leave your face, and I knew you let go of the one thing that was sent to make you whole. And baby, hearing her say that made my heart split in ways I can't even explain. Because my mother has seen every version of me, every broken boy, every stubborn man, every moment of pride that cost me peace. But when she spoke of you, it wasn't just with sadness, it was with reverence, like she knew she had witnessed something holy, something she didn't dare interrupt, something she now regrets not protecting sooner. And maybe I do too, because baby, you were the test, the one I didn't study for, the one I thought I could wing with charm and comfort and half-truths. But you weren't here to play games. You were here to change lives, to realign souls, to teach a man like me what love actually means. And instead of rising to meet that challenge, I let my fear speak louder than my heart. But now I hear my heart loud and clear, and it beats your name in every silence. In every moment I try to distract myself, in every dream I can't shake, in every corner of my house where your energy still lingers. Baby, I see the test now. I see it in full color, and I'm not ashamed of failing it. What breaks me is knowing I didn't even realize it was a test until you were already gone. I know you were sent into my life not to be tamed or changed, but to awaken, to expose, to stretch. And God, did you stretch me? You made me question everything I thought I knew about love, about masculinity, about truth. You challenged the version of me that was content with survival. You dared me to live, to feel, to believe in something greater than logic and control. And I didn't know how to hold that kind of power. I ran. I fumbled. I let shadows speak for me. And now, all I have left is silence and regret. My mom didn't say much after that. She just looked at me, eyes full of the kind of wisdom only a mother can carry, and she said, I hope it's not too late, because women like her don't wait forever. And baby, that cut deeper than anything else, because she's right. You shouldn't have to wait. You shouldn't have to wonder. You shouldn't have to carry the weight of being someone's awakening while also carrying your own heartache. You were the test, baby, but more than that, you were the lesson I didn't know I needed. And now, I can't unlearn you. I can't pretend like your love was ordinary. I can't act like your presence didn't change the way my soul breathes. You were a divine disruption, a cosmic pause, a sacred interruption that came to tear down everything false in me. And even though I failed the test, I'm finally studying the answers you left behind. Baby, I haven't been the same since that conversation. I've been walking through this house like it's a museum of memories. Your energy tucked into every corner, your voice echoing between the silence of rooms that used to feel warm when your name was still welcome here. And now, every breath I take feels like I'm answering questions I should have asked myself long ago. Every step I take is haunted by the one I didn't take. Toward you, toward truth, toward love that was trying to build a home inside my heart. And the more I sit with it, the more I realize this wasn't just about you being a test. No, baby, you were the answer too. The answer to everything I prayed for, but didn't believe I deserved. The answer to a soul that had forgotten what it meant to be seen without shame. You were the answer to the version of me that needed healing through gentleness, not force. Through understanding, not performance. Through love, not control. And I treated that answer like a question mark I was too insecure to read. I questioned you instead of trusting you. I doubted you instead of defending you. I held back when I should have held on tighter. And now, even the people who once questioned you, the people who stood at the door of my heart and tried to measure your worth with shallow eyes, even they're starting to see what I lost. Even my mother, God, especially my mother, is seeing now. The look in her eyes wasn't just disappointment in me, it was mourning. Mourning what could have been. Mourning the way I let ego eclipse something so undeniably divine. She told me later that night, when no one else was around, you know, she made you better. Even in your silence, I saw it. Even when you weren't talking about her, you were still becoming the man she believed you could be. And baby, I broke. I broke like I had been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled all the guilt I didn't have words for. Because she was right. You made me better, and I never told you how much that terrified me. Because I didn't know how to live in the light you kept handing me. You weren't the kind of test you pass with logic. You were the kind that required faith, courage, surrender. You were the kind of lesson that didn't come with warnings or instructions. You were the blessing wrapped in challenge. And I failed you not because I didn't love you, but because I didn't love myself enough yet to believe I could be loved by someone like you. But baby, I see it now. I see everything with a clarity that burns. I see how you waited. I see how you prayed. I see how you stood quietly in the fire, hoping I'd wake up before the flames consumed everything. I see how your silence was never absence. It was protection. Protection for your peace. Protection for the woman you were always becoming, even while holding space for a man who wasn't ready. And I honor that now. With everything I have left, you were a test, baby. But not the kind that punishes failure. You were the kind that opens a door, even after you walk away, just in case the student finally understands. And I think I understand now. I understand that love like yours isn't loud. It's sacred. I understand that your strength wasn't in how long you stayed, but in how gracefully you walked away when I couldn't rise to meet you. I understand that you weren't trying to be loved in a million ways. You just wanted to be chosen in one honest, bold, unapologetic way. And I couldn't give you that back then. But if you're listening now, if your heart is still soft enough to hear the tremble in my voice, the shift in my soul, then please, just know this. I didn't fail because I didn't care. I failed because I wasn't healed. And now, in the wreckage of my own choices, I'm learning what healing truly looks like. It looks like accountability. It looks like stillness. It looks like letting go of everything that told me I had to hide the love I felt for you. My mother's words keep replaying in my head. She was the mirror, son. The one that showed you everything you needed to face. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Because the mirror never lies. It shows you who you are and who you're not. And baby, when I looked into you, I saw the man I could have been, the man I still want to become. You didn't just test my love, you tested my truth. And now that everything's out in the open, now that the secrets have spilled and the masks have fallen, I don't want to run anymore. I want to return, not to the past, not to comfort, but to the part of me that still remembers how your name tasted like home on my tongue. The part of me that still feels you when the world goes quiet. The part of me that's finally strong enough to say, I see you, I value you. And I'll never let the noise drown you out again, baby. I've been sitting with her words for days now. That one line. She was a test, and you failed. It's not just something I heard, it's something I felt. Like it was tattooed across my chest, like it echoed every time I touched something you once held. My mom didn't say it to hurt me. She said it because she saw what I tried to hide. She saw the change in me before and after you. She watched me love you quietly and lose you loudly. And baby, I didn't realize how much you were still here until she said your name. She didn't say it in bitterness. She didn't say it like an accusation. She said it like a prayer, like your name still held weight in this house, like your presence still lingers in the fabric of my life. long after your footsteps stopped gracing my hallway. That's when I knew this wasn't just about missing you. It was about finally understanding you. It was about finally understanding you. You weren't sent to complete me. You were sent to confront me, to wake me up, to burn away every part of me that still clung to lies, to fear, to the boy who thought love had to be earned by suffering. And instead of choosing growth, I chose distance. I chose silence. I chose the version of me that made you question everything you gave me with open hands. I keep thinking back to the way you used to look at me, like I was worthy, like I was becoming, like even in my mess, I was still enough. I didn't believe you then, but I do now, because your belief in me was the purest thing I've ever known. And baby, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to forgive myself for not saying this when it mattered, but thank you. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to receive it. Thank you for seeing me when I didn't even know I was fading. And now, all I see is the void your absence left behind. A void I filled with excuses, distractions, and apologies I never sent. But it didn't work. Because love like yours doesn't just fade. It roots itself in the corners of a man's soul and waits for him to come home to himself. And baby, I'm walking home now, slowly, humbly, with bare feet and open hands, not to ask for your forgiveness, but to offer mine. To the version of me that let you go, to the boy who thought strength was in holding back love, to the man who let ego drive the car while his soul sat quietly in the back seat. My mom said something else that I haven't been able to shake. She said, real tests don't come when you're ready. They come to make you ready. And baby, you made me ready. Even in leaving, even in silence. You made me ready to feel, to remember, to stop pretending that I could erase your impact just because it was inconvenient for the image I was trying to protect. Because the truth is, you were the only thing real in a world that was built on performance. You weren't a mistake. You were the sacred interruption to my self-destruction. And now that I finally see that, I can't stop seeing it. In everything. In songs I used to skip. In coffee cups that still carry your lipstick print in my memory. In places we never visited but dreamed of together. You're everywhere. Not because I'm stuck, but because I'm finally still. Still enough to feel the depth of what I almost buried. Enough to understand that you weren't here to fit into my life. You were sent to expand it, and I want you to know something. Even if you never come back, even if we never speak again, your impact doesn't die here. It lives in the way I walk now, in the way I speak to myself when doubt creeps in the way I will never again let another woman wonder if she's too much for a man who's too little. You taught me that, not through lectures, but through love. You were the test, baby, but you were also the compass. And even though I strayed, even though I failed the first time, I'm still walking in the direction your love pointed me toward truth, toward presence, toward a version of myself that no longer fears intimacy, because he knows what it looks like now. It looks like you, baby. There's something I've never told anyone, not even myself, not fully, not until that conversation with my mom cracked something wide open inside me. You see, I thought I was protecting you by keeping parts of our connection private. I thought I was doing the noble thing by not dragging you into my chaos. But now, I realize that wasn't protection, and that was fear disguised as care. That was ego hiding behind a mask of love. And baby, I see now that I wasn't shielding you. I was shielding myself from the truth. that you were too good for the place I was in, and I was too afraid to rise to meet you. My mom saw the whole thing long before I did. She watched the slow unraveling of a man who didn't know how to receive a woman's love without trying to control it. She watched me shrink in the presence of something sacred, because no one had ever handed me a love so big, so honest, so raw, and just said, "It's yours, no conditions." And when she said you were a test, she wasn't saying it to wound me. She was saying it because she knew I was never going to grow until I faced what I lost. And baby, I lost something eternal when I lost you. The night she told me the truth, it was raining. I remember because the thunder felt like it was echoing something inside my chest. My mom stood in the kitchen, quiet, hands around a mug of tea. She didn't look at me right away. She just said, "You know, she wasn't the problem, you were. She was a test to see how much of your heart was still locked behind your trauma, and you chose the lock over the key." I didn't even argue, I just stood there staring at the floor like it could somehow absorb my shame. Because she was right, you were the key. The key to a version of me that could finally breathe, finally love, finally stop performing. But I left that key on the table and walked away. Baby, I replay our conversation sometimes, not because I enjoy the pain, but because I want to remember what it felt like to be loved, purely. I listen to your old voicemails. I read over those messages where you poured out your soul and said, "I just want to understand you. I don't need you to be perfect, just be real." And every time I read those words, something breaks in me all over again. Because you were never asking for more than I could give. You were just asking for honesty, presence, commitment, and I gave you confusion instead. But here's what I want you to know now. I'm not confused anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm not pretending that I can forget you like a chapter I've outgrown. Because you were never a chapter, you were the entire theme. You were the part of the story that made everything else make sense. And even though I didn't say it then, I will say it now. I loved you. I still do. Not with the kind of love that needs to own you, but with the kind of love that honors you, even if I only get to do it from a distance. My mom told me she used to pray for me, not just for my success, not just for my health, but for my heart. She said, "I prayed you'd meet someone who would teach you how to feel again." And then you met her, and I watched your soul come alive. And then she paused, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "And then I watched you kill it. Slowly, out of fear. And baby, I swear to you, I felt like the breath had been knocked from my lungs. Because I knew she wasn't lying. I knew I'd let fear drive me away from the one thing that was teaching me how to breathe again. You were the test, and in failing, I finally learned what love actually looks like. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't scream to be heard. It sits in silence, waiting to be honored. It whispers, "I'm here," even when everything else is falling apart. And baby, that's what you did. You were the stillness in my storm, the calm in my chaos, the truth in a world full of noise. And I never said thank you. Not properly. Not with the reverence you deserved. So, thank you. Thank you for loving me through the version of myself that didn't even know he was worth loving. Thank you for holding space when I couldn't hold eye contact. Thank you for not shrinking, even when I tried to fit your love into a container it was never meant to stay in. You broke the container. You spilled over every edge I tried to place on you. And that's how I know it was real, baby. I wish you could have seen my mother's face when she said it, when she looked at me with that calm, sorrowful expression and said, she was a test sent by something greater than all of us. And you didn't just fail her, you failed yourself. Her voice didn't carry judgment, it carried ache. A kind of quiet ache that only comes from watching someone you love push away the very thing that was sent to save them. And I realized in that moment, my mother hadn't just seen our story, she had felt it. In the way my energy shifted after you, in the way my laughter disappeared like smoke, in the way I started living, then suddenly stopped. Baby, she noticed. She saw how your presence made me lighter, how even my silence sounded different when your love was in the room. And when that love left, so did a part of me, a part I haven't been able to touch since. She told me something else that night. She said, I watched you carry her love like a secret, but she carried yours like a promise. Baby, I almost dropped to my knees. Because it was true. You weren't hiding, I was. You loved me openly, vulnerably, without apology. While I tucked your name into corners of my life that were too afraid to be honest. You deserved better than that, and my mother knew it long before I did. You were a test, yes, but you weren't here to trap me or trick me or expose me. You were here to invite me into a higher version of myself, a softer version, a braver version, a version that could love without fear, a version I see now, but only because your love left behind a blueprint, a map carved into my memory, a whisper that still guides me through the dark, a quiet truth that says, you could have had something eternal. You still could, if you're willing to rise. And baby, that's the thing. I want to rise now. I don't want to live at the level of fear anymore. I don't want to keep choosing silence because truth feels too risky. I don't want to look back 10 years from now and still see your name in my journal like a prayer I never had the courage to answer. I want to show up, for real this time, not with gifts or promises or grand gestures, but with presence, with honesty, with healing hands and a heart that's finally learned what it means to stay, because staying isn't just about proximity, it's about accountability. And baby, I owe you everything. I owe you the apology I never gave you while you were still soft enough to hear it without flinching. I owe you the protection I didn't provide when others tried to tear your name apart. I owe you the loyalty I withheld while I was still seeking validation from people who never even knew your soul. And most of all, I owe you the version of me that's finally ready to love you, with eyes wide open. I don't expect you to believe me right away. I don't expect you to pick up where we left off like nothing happened. I know too much happened. I know my absence left bruises. I know my silence made you question the very love you were pouring into me, and I carry that guilt with every breath. But if there's even a sliver of space in your heart where my name still lives, just a sliver, then I will spend the rest of my life proving that this time I'll pass the test, because I'm not that scared boy anymore. I'm not the one who flinches at love's intensity. I'm not the man who lets other people write the narrative of who deserves what. I'm not silent anymore. I'm loud with love now. I'm loud with truth. And the truth is this. You are the test I wasn't ready for, but I've never stopped studying you, never stopped honoring you, never stopped loving you, and my mother knows it too. She said, you may never get her back, but at least become the kind of man who'd never lose someone like her again. And baby, I took that to heart, because this version of me isn't fighting for a relationship. He's fighting for redemption, for clarity, for a chance to turn love into legacy, not just memory. You're not a lesson I learned and left behind. You're the turning point, the axis, the silent revolution that changed the direction of my soul. And no matter where you are now, I just want you to know this. You are the test that awakened the best in me, even in my failure, even in my silence, even in your absence, baby. Every time I sit in silence now, it's like your memory shows up before my thoughts do. It's like your presence walks into the room, uninvited but never unwanted. I hear your voice in the stillness, not loud, not accusing, just true. That same truth I used to run from because I didn't know how to hold something so honest without breaking it. But I get it now, and maybe that's what hurts the most, that I understand you better in your absence than I ever did when I had you close. My mom said something else that night. She said you treated her like a visitor when she was meant to be your home. Baby, do you know what it feels like to realize you turned away from the one place your soul finally felt safe? I didn't just lose you. I lost the safest love I've ever known. And I don't blame you for leaving. I don't blame you for going quiet, because silence is sometimes the only voice you have left when no one's listening. And I know I didn't listen. I listened to my fear. I listened to the voices of people who never met you but still felt entitled to judge you. I let their opinions override the truth I felt in my bones. And you stood still in all of it. You didn't fight to be heard. You didn't chase. You didn't explain yourself to people who didn't deserve your energy. You just stepped back and let me come face to face with what I was too blind to see. And now, baby, I see everything. I see how you were always the one asking the real questions. How's your heart? What scares you? Who hurt you before me? While I was too busy pretending I had it all figured out, you asked me to let you in and I cracked the door, but never fully opened it. And still, you stood outside, faithful, patient, loving, waiting for a version of me who wasn't afraid to choose you out loud, but I kept failing the test. I thought love was about chemistry and comfort and compatibility, but you showed me it was about character, about protection, about showing up when it's inconvenient, about showing up when it shakes the foundation you built your identity on. And baby, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to be seen fully and without filters. I wasn't ready to be seen fully and without a script. And so I failed you, not because I didn't love you, but because I hadn't yet learned how to love well. And yet, here I am, years, months, days, heartbeats later, and your name still feels like breath in my lungs. Not because I'm stuck, but because I'm waking up. I'm waking up to what love is supposed to feel like. And more than that, I'm waking up to the kind of man I want to be, baby. The truth is, you made me confront everything I had avoided. My ego, my control, my deep-rooted fear of being truly known. You cracked open the shell I had built around my heart, and instead of fighting that transformation, I should have thanked you for it. But I didn't. I resisted. I rebelled. I ran. And now I realize that sometimes the test isn't about whether or not you're loved. It's about whether or not you can love in return with the same strength, the same softness, the same soul-level clarity, and I couldn't. Not back then. But baby, I want to now. I want to love without hiding. I want to speak without fear. I want to protect without hesitation. I want to become the man you believed I could be, not just for you, but for the version of myself that still flinches when he thinks about how he let an angel walk away without building her a place to rest. You were a test, baby, but not the kind that punishes. You were the kind that reveals. You revealed the cracks in me, the wounds I tried to hide, the parts of me that still believed love had to hurt to be real. And you stood in front of all of that with arms wide open and said, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to walk beside you. And I still left. And that's what keeps me up at night. Not the memories, not the conversations, but the moment you finally stopped asking. The moment you gave up trying to explain your heart to someone who kept handing you silence in return. And baby, I wear that silence now like a scar I'll never hide again. Because it taught me something I couldn't have learned any other way. It taught me that love doesn't always end with betrayal or hatred or some dramatic blow-up. Sometimes it ends with the softest kind of grief. The grief of knowing you had something sacred and you let it slip away because you weren't brave enough to hold it. Baby, the night she told me she was a test, I thought it was just a passing statement. But those words, they didn't leave. They burrowed into my spirit. They echoed in every corner of this home, and every time I tried to silence them, your memory rose louder than anything else. Because what she said, it wasn't just a sentence. It was a mirror I had been avoiding for months, maybe years. You were the test I wasn't prepared for, not because you were difficult. No, baby, you were the easiest thing to love. You were peace in chaos. You were softness in a world that made me hard. You were warmth in a body that forgot how to feel. But that's exactly why I failed. I didn't know what to do with something so real. I didn't know how to hold love without squeezing it until it slipped through my fingers. You gave me a place to rest, and I turned it into a battlefield. She told me that night, a woman like her comes into a man's life to see if he'll finally grow up. And God, did I need growing. I was still a boy in armor pretending to be a man in control. But I wasn't in control, baby. I was drowning in expectations, drowning in my image, drowning in a fear that if I let you fully in, you'd see how small I really felt inside. And even if you saw that, you never judged it. You loved that boy anyway. You held him. You stayed, and me? I made you feel like staying was a mistake. I watched your light dim, little by little, and I said nothing. I thought you were just tired. I didn't realize you were slipping away. You were watching me, waiting for me to step into the version of myself you kept believing in. But I stayed silent. I stayed still, and then you left. I didn't realize it right away. But the absence, it wasn't just physical. It was spiritual. It was like the heartbeat of this house stopped. My routine stayed the same, but time felt slower. The sun didn't shine the same. Even my coffee tasted different. Because you weren't here, not even in energy. You had taken back what was always yours. Your peace, your presence, your light. And I broke, but I didn't tell anyone. I wore my routine like armor. I smiled through family dinners. I joked with my friends. I pretended like I wasn't haunted by your name in every empty room. But my mom saw it. She always does. She saw how I looked out the window too long. How I lingered in my phone too long. How I would open messages and close them again before typing a single word. And one day, she looked at me and said, "You let her walk out, didn't you?" She left my room bump, and one day, she looked at me and said, "You let her walk out, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence between us was enough. Then came the truth. The sentence that cracked the ceiling of my soul. She wasn't just love, son. She was a test, and you failed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't blame. It was clarity, delivered in the voice of a woman who's loved and lost and watched me do the same. She told me God doesn't send love to be cute. He sends it to grow you. She wasn't there to make you comfortable. She was there to make you whole. But you didn't trust her with the keys, and she was right. I held onto my brokenness like it was treasure. I protected my pain like it was sacred, and the woman who only ever tried to love me through it, I pushed her away. But baby, here's what I've learned through the pain. You can't pass a test you won't even study for. You can't receive divine love if you keep guarding wounds God sent someone to heal. And you can't keep blaming the world for heartbreak when the person who broke it was the one in the mirror. I was afraid to let you see how much I needed you. Afraid that if I said it out loud, it would make me weak. But baby, needing you didn't make me weak. Pretending I didn't. That's what broke me. Now, I see everything. The way you used to look at me when I was lost in my thoughts. The way you touched my shoulder when I couldn't find the words. The way you let me collapse into your love, even when it cost you pieces of your own peace. And I didn't see it then, but I see it now. And baby, if I could kneel in front of you and beg the universe for one more shot, I would. But you don't deserve begging. You deserve becoming. Becoming the man who doesn't just see your worth, but honors it. So I've been doing the work. Quietly, faithfully, slowly. I've been sitting with my shadows. I've been healing the boy who used to flinch every time someone got too close. I've been learning how to stay, how to speak, how to protect, how to soften without falling apart. And every lesson, it's written in your name. I don't know if the universe will give us another moment. I don't know if your heart still beats in my direction, but if it does, even just a little, I want you to know I'll be there. Not with empty promises, not with charm, not with grand gestures that disappear when things get hard. I'll be there with consistency, with stillness, with action that says, I've learned, and I'll never let this slip again, because, baby, you were the test, and though I failed you once, I will never fail what you taught me. Not again, not ever. And if this love was really heaven sent like my mama said it was, then maybe, just maybe, grace still exists, and maybe, just maybe that grace still carries your name. Baby, if I could show you the inside of my mind right now, you'd see that it's not just filled with memories. It's filled with revelations, not the kind that come from reading a quote or watching a sad movie. I'm talking about the kind of truth that only shows up when the world has gone silent, when the pain has stripped you bare, when the people you once thought had all the answers just look at you and say, it was her. She was the test. And I keep wondering, why didn't I see it then? Why didn't I feel the weight of your presence while I still had it? And maybe I did. Maybe that's why I got scared. Because there's something about being seen, really seen, that makes a man either rise or run. And baby, I ran straight into distractions, straight into the noise, straight into the arms of people who didn't know me and never tried to. I looked for pieces of you in strangers, thinking I could stitch together your essence from fragments. But no one could touch my soul the way you did with just your presence. I sat with my mom again yesterday, and she brought up your name like it wasn't a wound anymore, but a blessing. She didn't say it with tension. She didn't whisper like it was a secret. She said it like a truth that had finally settled in her spirit. She said, I hope she's happy, even if it's not with you, because she deserved to be. And baby, I couldn't breathe, because hearing that, knowing that even the woman who once doubted you now prays for your peace, that shook me deeper than anything, because it means she sees what I see, what I've always seen, what I was too coward to say out loud when it mattered. You were never a mistake. You were the divine test I was too blind to take seriously. And now I get it. The reason your silence cut deeper than any scream could have. The reason your absence haunts me more than any memory. The reason I wake up some nights reaching for a name I don't say out loud anymore. It's because your love wasn't ordinary. It wasn't just romantic. It was spiritual. It was sacred. And I treated it like it was optional. But I see the sacred now. I see it in the way my soul feels empty without you. I see it in the way my spirit doesn't settle with anyone else. I see it in the way I talk to God now, not asking for miracles, but for understanding, for a second chance, or at least the strength to live with the fact that I might never get one, and if I don't, then let this be my offering. Let this message be the proof that I didn't forget, that I didn't replace, that I didn't move on. I transformed. Because of you, baby. You didn't just love me. You shaped me. Your love left fingerprints on my character. Your voice still softens my anger. Your memory still redirects my ego. You were the North Star in a life I didn't know had lost its compass. And even now, when the world gets too loud and the future feels unclear, I still close my eyes and think of you, and everything settles. And maybe that's why my mom said what she did. Maybe that's why she finally looked me in the eye and said, you weren't just being loved, you were being taught how to love in return. And you failed the one person who didn't ask you to change, just to show up, and she's right. You didn't ask me to become a different man. You just asked me to show up as I truly was. And instead of rising into that vulnerability, I shrunk. I pretended I didn't care as much. I minimized what you meant to me, because I thought keeping it small would protect me from heartbreak. But nothing could have protected me from the heartbreak of losing you. And now, I walk through my days with a quiet reverence, a kind of sacred grief that no one sees, because I don't cry in front of people. I don't talk about you like you're gone. I talk about you like you still live in the pages of my soul, like you were never mine, but something borrowed from the heavens to remind me what love could feel like if I was brave enough to receive it. I wasn't brave then, baby, but I am now. Not just for you, for myself, for the man I'm still becoming, for the truth I'm no longer running from, for the memories I'm finally strong enough to carry without being crushed, and most of all, for the next person who walks into my life and asks, have you ever been in love before? Because when they do, I won't hesitate. I'll say your name, softly, clearly, because that's who you are to me. The only love I never wanted to forget, And baby, if by some miracle you're still listening, if your heart is still cracked open, even just an inch, know this: I'm not here to win you back. I'm here to honor what you were to me, what you are to me, and what you'll always be to me. A teacher, a healer, a truth I wasn't ready for, but will never again take for granted. Baby, I keep thinking about that last moment. Maybe not the one where we said goodbye with words, but the one where your silence became a language I didn't know how to speak. That moment when you walked away, not with drama, not with anger, but with grace. That's what haunts me most. Your grace. The way you chose dignity over chaos. The way you let me go, not because you didn't love me, but because you finally realized I wasn't loving you right, and I've come to understand that your love wasn't supposed to teach me how to be safe. It was sent to teach me how to be sacred. Sacred in how I speak, sacred in how I protect, sacred in how I stand behind the one I claim to love. And baby, I failed. I failed to keep you sacred in a world that wanted to reduce you to noise. I let the world speak over you when I should have silenced the world to honor you. My mother saw that. She didn't say it at first, but she saw the look in my eyes every time your name came up. The way I shifted, the way I looked away like a guilty man, caught holding something holy with dirty hands. And when she finally told me the truth, that you were a test sent to elevate my soul, I felt everything inside me collapse, because I knew she was right. You weren't a phase. You weren't a lesson. You were a mirror, a divine reflection of the kind of love I never thought I was worthy of, until it was gone. And baby, if I could go back, not to erase the past, but to choose differently, I would. I'd answer the texts I ignored. I'd shut down the gossip before it ever touched your name. I'd show up at your door, not with excuses, but with presence, with truth, with hands that didn't shake at the idea of holding something eternal, because that's what you were to me. Eternal. You weren't loud, you weren't forceful, but you were undeniable. And now, even in your absence, I hear you louder than ever. I hear you in the way I pause before I speak. I hear you in the way I now protect what's pure. I hear you in the silence, because your silence taught me more than 1,000 conversations ever could. And I just hope that wherever you are, you're not carrying the burden of my silence. I hope you know it wasn't your fault. It was never your fault. You didn't do too much. You weren't too deep, too loving, too intense. You were exactly what love is supposed to feel like when God sends someone to show you who you're meant to become. You were the test. And baby, you were the answer too, baby. I need you to know something before this message ends. This wasn't just me talking to the past. This wasn't just a confession soaked in regret. This was a man finally rising from the ashes of who he used to be, because the woman he loved walked away with grace instead of revenge. Because the woman who was meant to be a test ended up becoming a guide, a light, a prayer that never stopped echoing through the silence. And now every breath I take is a quiet vow to live differently, to love differently, to never let another soul feel what you felt, unprotected, misunderstood, unseen. You gave me more than love, baby. You gave me a mirror. And even though I cracked it, the reflection still lives in me. Strong, whole, healing. My mother said it best. She wasn't sent to make your life easier. She was sent to wake you up. And now that you're awake, what will you do with the light she left behind? And baby, I finally have the answer. I will protect it. I will honor it. I will carry it like a sacred flame, even if you never hear from me again, even if your heart belongs to someone else, even if our paths never cross in this lifetime. I'll still be whispering thank you to the stars every night, because loving you made me remember who I was always meant to be. You were the test. You were the lesson. You were the gift wrapped in divine fire. And now, finally, I understand. So wherever you are, I hope you feel this. I hope your spirit picks up on the frequency of this love. This reborn, humble, quiet, transformed love. And I hope it brings you peace. Not because you owe me another chance, but because you deserve to know that someone out there still prays for your joy like it's oxygen. Because maybe even now, especially now, I still believe in the miracle of you. If this message touched something deep inside you, if it felt like his voice was speaking your story, your heartbreak, your healing, then don't let it end here in silence. Let it breathe. Let it echo. Comment below. I forgive you if your heart is still open to the idea of healing. I still believe in us if the love hasn't truly left, or just right, sacred. If you felt this message was a divine sign meant for you. Like this video, if the words brought you clarity. Some love support. If you believe in soul connections, in truth-telling, in second chances that come with healing. Share this with someone who needs to hear that not all love is lost. Some love is reborn in silence and returned in light. This isn't just a voiceover. This is your moment, your sacred space to feel seen, heard, remembered. And remember, beautiful soul, you were never too much. You were just too real for a world that wasn't ready. But he sees it now, and that love never truly died. It's just been waiting for a moment like this to speak again. We'll see you in the next message. Until then, protect your peace, keep your heart soft, and never forget, you are the kind of love that transforms timelines.